Alright, guys, my third one would be... Pumpkin, you're gonna make me mad. Stop it. Pumpkin, stop! Why you be bad girl again? Let's do terrifying urban legends that turn out to be real.
As he pulls up alongside your car, though, the driver rolls his passenger side window down and starts frantically yelling and pointing at your car. "There's a man in your back seat," the driver screams. Terrified, you whip around to look at your back seat, but it's too late. You're now another victim of a knife-wielding, carjacking madman. The urban legend of the backseat murderer is exactly that, an urban legend. But there's far more creepy urban legends that turned out to be more fact than fiction. If you're in the mood to check your toilet bowl before you sit on it, sleep with all the lights on at night, and hesitate before you pull over for police officers who may be murderers in disguise, then stay tuned and keep on watching. We warn you, monsters in the toilet bowl. It's a horror movie trope dating back to the early 80s. Some helpless victim wanders into the bathroom and plops down on the toilet to do their business. Suddenly, they're attacked from below. A horrible monster claws at them, or a venomous snake bites, or insects invade their most sensitive areas. The monster in the toilet bowl is probably so terrifying because of how very vulnerable we feel when we're using the bathroom. This is us at our most vulnerable. Our pants around our ankles, and our guard completely relaxed. The last thing anyone's hoping for or expecting is any sort of confrontation. This is such a deeply ingrained vulnerability in mammals that the reason your dog follows you to the bathroom is not because they don't want to be left alone, but because they don't want you to be alone. Your faithful Fido is actually guarding you as a packmate would in the wild, and making sure you're not attacked while helpless and vulnerable. But the monster in the toilet is one based on truth, with plenty of examples of horrors discovered in toilets, and often only after they've struck. If you're a fan of camping and using public outdoor toilets, then count yourself lucky you haven't been attacked in your most vulnerable areas. These outdoor toilets are lousy with ants, scorpions, centipedes, and all matters of snake biting, creepy
Oh, my cat is getting annoying.
basically an invitation to a feast for a lot of insects and animals. And the warmth of these holes in the ground can also be appealing to reptiles seeking shelter. That's why snakes are all too often
You see
found in
why
porta-potties
I'm
and outdoor
stressing now,
toilets.
guys?
But maybe you think you're safe because your toilet is indoors. Think again. In Florida, because of course it was in Florida, a man was bitten by a 4-foot python.
Pumpkin, stop it!
Toilet bowl. The 4-foot
Stop
snake
it!
was curled up in the toilet and lashed out the moment the man exposed it. Luckily for him, pythons aren't venomous, and a python bite in the arm is painful, but not lethal. Our next victim, however, was bitten by a large python
Leave me
that
alone.
the place. In Thailand, a man went to the bathroom to relieve himself and promptly unzipped his pants, prepared himself, and lifted the toilet seat. What greeted him was a jack-in-the-box from hell, as a large python struck with lightning speed, sinking its fangs directly into the man's penis. The man struggled to free himself from the snake's bite, and luckily he was able to pry the snake off. When emergency workers arrived, they found the bathroom covered in blood, and the man suffering from severe blood loss. He would live, but he probably would never use a toilet again. Snakes aren't the only thing to show up in toilets, though, so if you think you're safe because your area has no snakes, think again. In New York and other big cities, rats have been frequently found swimming out of toilets, and some have even bitten individuals as they sat to relieve themselves. Small rodents can hold their breath for long amounts of time and have little problem navigating the extremely tight confines of house plumbing, following it to your home all the way from the sewer. With their ferocious little teeth, rats can cause a lot of damage in a short time and carry all matters of disease. So, next time you're going to use the toilet, look twice before you sit, and open your toilet bowl lid at your own peril. Candyman. Candyman's popularity exploded with the horror film of the same name, which tells the story of the vengeful specter of a freed slave who fell in love with a white woman and got her pregnant, only to be brutally murdered by her father and his accomplices. Now given over to a dark and terrible rage, enraged, Candyman would brutally attack anyone who was foolish enough to stare into a mirror in the dark and repeat his name over and over again. Surely, this is a myth, and being murdered by someone coming through your bathroom mirror was pure legend.
Again.
In
I can't get this
1987,
shit
Ruthie
done,
Mae
do
McCoy
I?
was home alone in her project's apartment. She made a terrifying 911 call.
No.
Panicked and in terror, McCoy told the dispatcher that her life was in danger by men emerging from her bathroom cabinet. The dispatcher believed this to be a dispute with a neighbor and sent the police car. But given the low priority of the call, the car attended to other business before responding. Then came more 911 calls from neighbors saying that they were hearing sounds of gunshots. Two police crews
Sorry about that.
were dispatched, but when they arrived on the scene, they found the front door of the police department locked. With no answer to their knock, the police were hesitant to force their way in, fearing being sued if there was no disturbance. Thus, they left the scene. The next day, however, a woman who regularly had contact with Miss McCoy called the police to let them know that she had been seen that day. Now, with concern over her well-being, the police broke into her apartment, only to discover McCoy shot to death and laying in a pool of her own blood. Her apartment had been ransacked, and yet there was no sign of forced entry. That's when the police decided to check the bathroom and discovered the horrible truth. A panicked McCoy had been trying to tell the 911 dispatcher the bathroom cabinet had been knocked out of place, revealing an area of pipes behind it, which had been used by McCoy's attackers to move in between apartments unseen. This was a design feature of the apartment building meant to make it easier for maintenance workers to service the building's piping. Instead, it ended up being an avenue of attack that got Miss McCoy killed. In fact, the crawl space behind the bathroom cabinets of each apartment was widely used by gangbusters and thieves, who would utilize them to break into people's homes or escape police. Sadly, Miss McCoy, whom the thieves probably didn't expect to be home, would end up a victim of the hidden but not so secret crawl space. The real question for our viewers who live in apartment buildings themselves is, how well do you know your building? The Leaping Lawyer. There's an old cliche about lawyers and bankers finally at the end of their rope leaping to their death from high-rise offices. While these are two professions with high instances of suicide, the leaping to one's death from a skyrise is extremely rare. It's more urban legend than true.
I am not
On a
trying to know
Toronto
you,
July day
Lucas.
in 1993, though, the urban legend would become
I'm
true
trying to
in a
get this shit
terrifying
done.
and truly tragic way. Gary Hoy was a senior partner with the law firm of Holden Day and Wilson. On the upward track, life was all peaches and cream for the 39-year-old lawyer, or it would have been if it wasn't for his propensity for a particularly dumb practical joke of his. Gary was fond of scaring young law partners and new employees, and his favorite way of doing this was to run full speed into one of the high-rise building's ceiling-to-floor glass windows. These massive panes of glass are designed to withstand very high winds and strong impacts, and for the 99 times that Gary had pulled this little prank off, the window had always held. Number 100 was the exception, as Gary ran full tilt into the window. Not satisfied with the reaction of the students, Gary repeated his body check to the window. This time the window gave. Falling from a height of 23 stories, Gary had seconds to consider his very stupid practical joke before pancaking on the street below. Gary's accidental death became so infamous that it was an overnight urban legend. A real-life event. Shows like Mythbusters and 1000 Ways to Die all retold the story of Gary's tragic death, and he himself became the recipient of the 1996 Darwin Award. But how had a window that had withstood so many impacts simply given way that day? Experts believe that on this attempt, Gary hit the window with such a leading edge of his body first, concentrating the impact force on a much smaller area than normal. This might have been with his wristwatch, as hypothesized on 1000 Ways to Die, but it could have been with any part of his body, really. With so much impact concentrated on such a small point, the glass would have much more easily shattered, sending Gary to his death on the street below. Killer in the back seat. Now we turn back to our original urban legend that we opened the show with. An unassuming motorist is driving down a dark road when they're attacked by a killer hiding in the back seat. In some variations, other motorists try to warn the person by flashing their brights at them, each time flashing just as the killer rises up to strike the killing blow. While that version of the urban legend is definitely false, and the legend as a whole has been around since the explosion of car culture in America around the late 1950s, in at least one tragic incident, it was more fact than fiction. In 2013, a young woman parked her van at a gas station and went inside to pay for some items. While she was gone, a man snuck inside her unlocked van and hid in the back rows. As she drove away from the station, a man made himself known and forced the woman to drive to the back of an alley where he assaulted her. After that, he made her drive to an ATM and forced her to withdraw cash before finally leaving her to flee into the night. gas station surveillance cameras, they found that the man had been trying car doors before running into the woman's unlocked van and sliding inside. While police never found the attacker, they warned that anytime you exit your vehicle, you should always make sure you lock all of your doors. Because next time that you park somewhere and just hop out for a moment, it could be you with a criminal lurking in your back seat. Now check out scary urban legends that'll keep you up.
Alright guys, I will see you my fourth one, so I see you then.